And welcome to another great episode with myself and the infamous Thom Jones. So look, today we're going to be talking a lot about student experience, how that's transitioning and blossoming and coming to life online. And I want to just start off with a couple of introductions. My name is Alex Asher. I'm the CEO of LearnCube. We specialize in a virtual classroom made specifically for language teaching and language learning. And we also provide an online school solution end-to-end if that's something that is important to you in terms of managing reporting, class scheduling, class credits, user management, the works. But I'm actually here with a very good friend of mine, Thom Jones. And Thom, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, my name actually is Thom Jones, which is slightly embarrassing. I blame my parents. I started as a teacher and then I became a school principal, and I've done lots of sales for schools, worked in operations. Education is very much my passion for myself and for others. But it's also my profession, and it's also my hobby, because I love learning stuff in my spare time. And day by day, when we stop learning, what can we teach?
That's right. And actually, I always find these sessions really fun because we both learn and both create new ideas. And this is what it's going to be about, because it's about the student experience. And if you think about a student experience, that can be whatever you want it to be. But I think probably, and I'll give you a spoiler alert, it's probably not just shifting straight to a Zoom conversation and calling that a classroom. So I think there's going to be an element of us talking through what existed before COVID-19, what is currently what's experienced right now, or maybe why that's not working so well, and what it could look like. And that doesn't even mean necessarily LearnCube. Of course, we offer some tools to help you with that experience, but this is more of a conversation about, if you were a student, putting yourself in their shoes, what would you pay money for? And what would you pay a lot or a little for? Because that value that student gets is what they're prepared to pay for. And so again, one of the questions that was probably going to pop out of this is, pricing and positioning and a whole lot of other things. And that will all come down to what is the student experience that you're delivering.
And so, myself, I run a consultancy company, and what's interesting to me is schools and businesses that I work with are really talking that crunch sort of price point thing of saying, well, if we go online, does it mean we have to sell it for tuppence? Does it mean we have to give it away? Does it mean we can still run on the same model that we've had before? And I think what's really interesting watching particularly the language industry is seeing people making huge, brave, brilliant efforts to get their schools online, to give their clients brilliant offerings. And I think some of those are really, really great, and some of those are working really well. And most people will ride with whatever they're given, And yet, there's also moments of, I guess, frustration where, for me certainly, and probably for you, where I'm seeing people doing stuff and you're thinking, oh, it's great, you've worked really hard on that, but you could have been doing this much more really easily, So I think that's really interesting, and I think that's sort of, that's where we are, right?
So look, if you're listening in here today, please don't feel like this is any criticism of what you're currently doing. This is only designed to help you deliver the best experience for your students. But what we are seeing today is, we are seeing an inferior student experience being played out online. And I think this is where a lot of schools are feeling like they're not seeing enrollments increase, they're not seeing people come back, they're not seeing referrals for their online offering. And maybe a part of that is that the student experience is not living up to the expectation that those students are having.
That's so true, because I think the amount of students who were in countries when this all started and suddenly went from having a course where they were interacting daily with 20 other nationalities are suddenly stuck in their hotel having a Zoom for 15 hours a week, whatever it is, and that's not what they signed up for. And a lot of teachers who, with the best will in the world, are making huge efforts and working really hard to provide great quality, great ideas and all this stuff, but they're often people who were sort of on the Friday told, right, Monday you're teaching online. Never done that, no experience of that, and why would they? And they're suddenly going, right, and they're doing really well and they're making a lot of effort, but they have to, because they haven't done it before. And it's the thing we've talked about before about being a teacher is great, but being a teacher online is a very different animal, and it's a very different skill. And there are people who are perfectly good teachers face to face and who are not able to bring that over online, and vice versa. There are people who work really well online I work very well on radio. I'm not an attractive man. You know, these things are, you know, the skills and things we bring to life. You know, nobody wants to see this in the morning. And I think, you know, that's also kind of true for teaching, isn't it? That as a student experience, you think, well, if you've paid a lot of money and you've come all the way across the world, you don't want to be in your hotel. You want to be mixing and mingling. You want to be building up a brilliant network of friends and like business contacts around the world. And you want to go home knowing that you've got this great sort of, dare I say, entourage of people behind you, you know. And the linguistic experience is a cultural experience. It's a life experience. It's a real kind of milestone. And that's what a lot of our students come to these different countries, come to these different schools to do. Yeah. So it's not just about the grammar. It's also about the great, you know, and we need to give them great.
Absolutely. And I think part of this, and I kind of wanted to spend a bit of time on this, is it's not just the classroom experience. So first of all, having a teacher that's never done online teaching before and then suddenly forcing them to do online teaching, it's not going to be a matter of weeks and potentially not even months if you're not providing any training or helping that teacher develop their comfort and also confidence and understanding and how to adapt things online. So there's got to be some work there as teachers in terms of delivering a great teaching experience. But then it also comes not just to the classroom itself, but that experience is either side of that, right? Like it's also before I come into the class, what's my relationship like with that school beforehand? You know, have I felt like they value me, or am I just jumped in a classroom and said, hey, learn some stuff? And then at the end, like I'd have this great experience and then I'll see you later. And then that's it.
Yeah.
So
and that's so true, because you know it has to be a holistic thing. It has to be something that is, you know, you're satisfied body and soul. You know what I mean? It's like a good dinner. You know, you have to have the kind of the sort of starter and the main course and the amuse bouche, and you have to have a good cigar afterwards. I don't smoke cigars, but you know the idea is it has to kind of be all of those elements. And I think education is the same, that people learn when they're loving it, you know. And people learn when it's really stuck in their head, and it's stuck in their head because they've met somebody, you know, they're sat next to somebody from Brazil and they're sat next to somebody from Korea, and they kind of go, this is amazing. And it's not that thing where you're often in a language class, you know, if you're Italian and you're in Milan and you go along 3 hours a week and you kind of go in and you're sat next to somebody who speaks the same language as you, and they're kind of looking at you and they're going, my name is my name is Riccardo. I have 15-year-old, and it just feels, you know, you feel stupid doing it, and it feels false because the person you're talking to is like, you can just say it's fine. Sorry, can I apologise for my ridiculous Italian accent? I think, but you know, and as a language learner, you know, you feel stupid and you feel like you're wasting your time, because, you know, why would you talk to Mario in English because you're both Italian? What? And suddenly you're thrown into a place where you're studying abroad, and getting on the bus and getting through the door and getting to reception, getting your coffee, and all of these things are a linguistic experience, where that experience as a student, that's what molds you, because you kind of have the classes, and the classes give you tools. And then a good school sets up experiences for you that allows you to use those tools, and they're your tools, you know. And I think the thing I always say with students and with teachers is, like, they will learn with us, but they'll learn much more from each other, you know. So what we have to do is create experiences for them to use those tools, you know. So what students often do at any age, I think, will often do that thing where they sort of do the classes, and after the classes they do social things and think, oh, I'm not in the class anymore, yay. But actually it's a trap, it's all a class, you know. So if you are, you know, if you're out visiting a museum with a group of people, if you're sat in a cafe, if you're watching a film, if you're doing all of those things are a class, and all of those things are the things that really perfect your language skill ability, and it's magic, like that. So, you know, it has to be that sort of thing where it is a formative experience, you know. Absolutely. And just have to kind of come out of it and think, oh, hang on, this is brilliant, you know. I'm quite evangelical about education. I get very excited.
I think that was so perfect, and there were a couple of points that I think we should definitely touch on either a little bit later on, but it's around this idea that it's not just the class, so it's about the experience. So that experience is both before and after class, and so it's that whole journey. And what I also wanted to touch on as well is the importance of a group and how that's facilitated. And again, it's not just about, hey, you're in the class, now how do I manage a group? Who came into that class? Have I got the right people in that group? Are they going to be talking to each other? How am I as a teacher going to know these are the people that are going to be there? And how do I know, hey, these are the kinds of people that are going to work really well together? Because I think even in a physical school, you know, you would have some people that maybe are from Asia and some people that from Latin America. And you needed to help them facilitate that connection because there wasn't a cultural shared understanding there. You had to kind
Well, I
of
think you often see like a really kind of raw edge of racism in the classroom where you'll get students who have not experienced different cultures before. And you will get, for example, as you say, you know, you'll get, you know, European students responding to Asian students and saying, oh, they can't speak any English and they never say anything. And you're sort of saying, listen, if you shut up for 2 minutes, then they would talk, you know, because they're from a culture that's quite respectful and quite gentle, and they are not used to that participatory kind of dog eat dog classroom mentality that is a big thing in sort of Southern Europe. I mean, these are gross stereotypes, and of course, people are people, but you know, there is that edge there. And I think what's really interesting with the physical classroom is that you often have to kind of wade into that, you know, and with an online classroom, what's really nice is you can actually share around the room, you know. And what a lot of people are coming back to me in training sessions saying is, you know, God, I love the mute button. You know, can I get a mute button in my classroom? So what you can do is you can say, right, you go ahead and talk now, and they'll kind of go, all right, okay, and they will, you know. And also that thing about opinions, and in a lot of cultures, it's not okay to have an opinion that's different from your teacher, or you know, countermand somebody else's opinion. So if somebody in the class says, look, I really like this, it's not okay to go, actually, I'm really sorry, but Genesis are a rubbish band, you know? Which I would totally stick with, because I can't be doing with Genesis at all, mainly because of Phil Collins. But I mean, who hate, you know, Phil Collins is the Antichrist. Different topic. But my point is that ultimately, like, you know, that thing of kind of mixing cultures, mixing minds and mixing people does work very well online, because you can orchestrate it. Right?
You can. I'm actually going to bring us back to what was online language teaching and learning like before COVID-19? Because for a lot of you out there that might even be listening to this, you might not have even thought about it, because it's just like, oh, it's that other thing that happens when people aren't with me. And yeah, it's terrible. That's generally like being the experience, or at least the presumption. It's like, oh, online, so not a good thing. But there's a lot of different aspects about online teaching, and I kind of want to dig into that. So just one moment with me. Great. So online language education is not new, and it's always had two main arms, right? You've got a really human-powered, human-centric experience, which is to do with teachers and teaching, or at least facilitating that human-to-human connection. And then you've got machine-powered, like app-based or automated course-based kind of language teaching. So they're two completely different parts of online language education, even if they can help each other out. Now, before this, these are some examples of how people kind of fit into little boxes. And I'm writing a book on the future of online language education, which is kind of an interesting time to be writing on it. But but what we're talking about here are design choices. So when you're creating an online experience, you're creating design choices like, am I doing peer-to-peer learning? You know, so is that what I'm trying to facilitate? Am I trying to do one-to-one, private, like teacher to student kind of an experience? Am I doing small groups? You know, and when I talk about small groups, I should just say groups, because actually up to probably 8 students, you just never really saw schools, education companies really trying anything beyond 8 students. Why? Because language education is incredibly participatory. It's incredibly interactive if you want it to be effective. So people are really like a lot more concerned about how much attention am I getting? How much interaction am I getting? How much practice time am I getting? And as soon as you're even above 6 students, if you think about it, a 60-minute class, 6 students, each student's only going to get 10 minutes of time with the teacher. And even if you talk about breakout rooms, I mean, breakout rooms are a great thing as well, but just remembering that's quite an advanced and sophisticated technology and tool. It's not going to be for It's generally never been for, I'm a first time teacher, and then like, hey, here's some breakout rooms, go for your life. Because think about it, what's the content like? How are you teaching a teacher that's used to not necessarily breaking people off in breakout rooms in a physical classroom? They're just like, hey, pull out your textbooks and we're going to go through some stuff. You know, it was very different dynamics and very different understanding. But I wanted to articulate this because I think a lot of schools have tried to just change and replicate what they were doing in an in-person class and put it straight online. So this large group of 8+ students didn't exist. It wasn't financially viable before COVID. And so my question is it viable now? Like, are people willing to pay money, at like any money or some money, to doing these very large classes? And look, the market's going to tell you, but if you're not getting a lot of hits, that could be part of the puzzle.
Well, I think, as you've said before, it's that thing of suddenly trying to just entirely replicate what we've had before and have 15 people for 20 hours a week in the Zoom room, or whatever platform it is. And, you're left thinking, listen, that's not going to fly. That's that sort of education. You might as well just watch a YouTube video,
That's it.
Which is not entirely a bad thing. And there are certainly
not at all
positives to that, but not for 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
And you do think, look, there's a lot of options, and there are a lot of options that are better than that. And I think that's what's exciting, because, as you said before, we're not here to kind of attack anybody in the work people have done, because obviously, push comes to shove, you've got to jump in there, and people have done, and people, the teachers that are providing online lessons that were, not doing that on Friday, suddenly doing it on Monday, working incredibly hard to do that right and do that well. And a lot of people are under a lot of strain and stress with that. So, it's not criticism of those people at all. We are just sort of empirically saying, well, yeah, but what are we offering students as an industry? And what are we hoping this will become? Because, there may come a point in the next months, weeks, years, maybe, where we are saying, look, concrete schools, it's fine. It's all back to normal. But normal's a very different thing now, because people have tasted the online on a scale that they hadn't before, and people have gone, actually, this is fine, this is great, this is all right, and there's a lot that comes with that. So as a school, why would you suddenly lock that out? And also, why would you not continue with that? A lot of teachers who, as I say, were kind of panicked and frightened by doing this first, and now going, this is great, I love this, because I'm in my living room and I'm in my pajamas, and the quality of life and the lack of stress of not being in a room with 15 shouting kids is nice. People are saying, oh, this is great, I quite enjoy this, and my students are getting more out of it, and they're relaxed and they're feeling better because they're where they want to be. And you click it and you're finished, and you do other stuff in you. And that sort of lifestyle choice is definitely something people are looking at now.
Yeah, and I think it will continue, but it doesn't really matter. Like, I think whatever your view on what will happen in the future will be whatever it will be. But online language tuition is not going to be going away. And ideally, we want you to feel confident and comfortable in this segment of the market, because it's a much bigger part of the market than it was before. And it will continue. Like, this is not going to go back to zero or go back to what it was before, like 5 or 10%. It's going to be a much larger chunk. And my hope is that you'll come away with like, hey, yes, maybe we're going to continue with our physical language school, and that's going to be great once things go back to normal. But either way, we're actually going to use our online experience as a way of augmenting what we've got, either in the classroom or before they come to us or after they leave us. But we're going to create that as a cohesive and ongoing experience. So I'm also going to just jump on to what a lot of people think online language education is. And these are also design choices, but they are very different. So when you're talking about machine-powered language education, so that's apps, self-paced courses or paced courses, I mean, that's the whole point. These are design choices. So these are the kinds of things that we see kind of help create some sense of the ecosystem or the landscape in this kind of segment. And it's like, who's setting the pace? Is it the course? Is it the student? Is this a menu of language education options to choose from? Or am I being put through a sequence? Or is that sequence changing? Is it adapting? But everything relies on the let's call it the machine, but it could be the app, the program, the algorithm, whatever you like to call it. But the more sophisticated the algorithm, the more different paths and different options you can offer. But the least sophisticated ones, there's really only one path, and that makes it very much a one size fits all. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is if you're offering a self-paced, or just even, let's call it self-study, being aware that there have been options available for self-study since, well, certainly very, very popular over the last 20 years. This is not a new concept. I mean, we actually work with Babbel ourselves, and they're fantastic. Their app is phenomenal. Now, we help them with their B2B side in terms of that tuition. But in terms of their app, I mean, they've been dialing this since 2008. They've put in millions and millions of dollars into their content and that creation. So I think one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up is if you're doing self-study content, be aware that there's a lot of free options out there that are incredibly well dialed. So you kind of need an experience that would match that, or be so different and effective that it doesn't matter what other people are doing. People are going to love what you offer. But then I would also come back to viability there, because these apps rely on huge scale to be profitable. So Duolingo has hundreds of millions of customers to be able to build its platform and its offering. So that's, I guess, my only kind of nervousness and hesitation about people jumping straight into authoring and creating content that students are going to be doing in a sort of self-study kind of manner. Thom, what do you think?
I think there's also a lot to be said. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I've really enjoyed, I've done a bit of Duolingo, I've done a bit of Babbel, and I've really enjoyed both of them. And I think I've learned stuff from them. But thing that you sort of think, listen, look, that is one set of skills, but it's not a complete set. Right? Yeah. So I feel that for example, my wife's Turkish, and I speak Turkish, we speak Turkish at home. I can't write or read Turkish very well at all. So I've used those apps to, really get that ability up. And that has worked, and that is good. Yeah. In conjunction with the stuff that I'm doing outside of that. And I think the danger, I suppose, is just thinking that the self-study stuff will get you, that if you are going to be, a C1 student via those kind of things, then you are a C1 speaker, and the reality is very different. So you often find that thing, and this is true with academics anyway, isn't it? That, I remember when I was at university and I did French, and I had a load of friends who were at Oxford, and they could all dissect 15th century French poetry, but when we all got to Paris, they couldn't order a coffee.
Yeah, because people aren't robots, right? They're not. Yeah. I think one of the things we came up a lot, and we thought about a lot with our book, was this idea of the instructional environment and the non-instructional environment. Now, by the way, I'm not the educator here, but my co-author is, and we talked a lot about that, because I think a lot of apps can help you feel like really confident if you're in their environment, but as soon as you put a human that says things in a slightly different accent or in a slightly different way, and you weren't thinking, hey, this is what I'm doing, then it makes it really difficult. So either way, you're going to have either a blend, or if you're listening to this, there's a high chance that your strengths are going to be in delivering the teaching, delivering a live with a teacher experience, because you're going to need to have something out the door pretty quick, and you're going to want to flourish in the still environment, but again, playing to your strengths. So the next kind of thing I think is going to be helpful if you're going to create a great experience is to remember who is that audience, who is your target market. So if you're talking about an experience, hey, the best experience is something that somebody's going to recommend. Who for? Now, Thom, this probably brings up your biscuit analogy. I mean, you always have one on hand. So Thom, tell us about why people should be thinking about their student first before just designing a generic environment or a generic experience.
Well, today I've actually gone one better. I don't have a biscuit. I have a Chelsea bun, right? Ooh. And the Chelsea bun that I have for you today is, it's kind of a cake and it's kind of a biscuit, but it's also slightly bread. And I think, students are the same way, aren't they? We've talked before about the fact that, a student comes through the door and they want to learn a language, and that's great. But how do they want to learn it? What do they want to learn it for? What kind of learner are they? What kind of teaching are they going to respond to? Any teaching experience is always 50-50, isn't it? You know, that we're always saying to students, it's great that, you know, it's great that you're here and I will happily teach you, but you have to learn.
Yeah.
You know, there's an effort involved in that. And I think the Chelsea Bun thing is, you know, people come in and they think, right, fine, you're the teacher. This is a school. I need to be at C1 by Thursday. Make it happen.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of going, hang on, I'll stop you there. What we're going to need to do is look at, you know, there's needs analysis, isn't there? And thinking what they actually need to be able to do. And I think your thing about the self-study is a really good point, isn't it? Because it's that thing where what we often teach people is, you know, when we're teaching languages, we often teach people the way that we teach a song. So we sort of say that you go into the shop and you say, bonjour, comment allez-vous? And the person in the shop will say, je vais très bien, qu'est-ce que vous voulez? And you will say, je voudrais un kilo de pêche, right? And obviously, you're taught to say, je voudrais. I don't even like peaches, right? And I'd certainly never want a kilo of them. But you're taught to go in the shop and go, je voudrais un kilo de pêche. For those of you that aren't fluent in French, that's French, all right? It's not very good French because it's me. But you go in the shop and you go, je voudrais un kilo de pêche, all right?
Yeah.
And the reality is that you go in the shop and you say, bonjour, comment allez-vous? Je voudrais un kilo de pêche. And unless the person says to you, c'est 5 francs, voilà, bonne journée, right?
And that's only with one number.
Those words.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like you learn a song. And the reality is that you know, and I know that when you actually go, you know, into the field, you know, and you use your language and you go to the shop and you say, bonjour, comment allez-vous? The person in the shop always says, mais moi c'est excellent, je voulais demander parce que là, le chapeau, une chose qui ressemble énormément au chapeau qui avait ma tante. Et donc pour ça, and you're there going, you know, and we've all been there and we've all died a horrible death, you know, linguistically. So it's really, you know, preparing students for that is really key, isn't it? And it's that thing of saying, look, it's great that you've learned a song, but what you're actually learning is music, you know? And the way that works is it's like jazz. And I hate jazz, obviously, because it's annoying. But as a sort of allegory, what we're saying is it's like jazz because we're teaching you to play the music. You know, we're not teaching you to play a tune because it could go in any direction. And that's how conversation works. And that's how language works. Language is like jazz. It can go in any direction. And it's often annoying. Coming out with all my musical prejudices today.
I love this. I think we've got a long way. But I think if I was to articulate what Thom is saying is that, look, language is not a one-size-fits-all. It is not an interplay between robots trying to communicate information. And actually, you know what? That part of the market is already done anyway. Look, translation apps are going to take that transactional part of the market. It's not going to take the conversation part of the market. And that's the valuable bit. That's the bit that is like jazz. And that's the bit that we all need to help our students learn. So with that in mind, I guess the key thing to remember, though, is that we all have different students and they want different things. So if you're designing an experience, you have to think, okay, I'm dealing with teens. What are they like? What ages are they? Why would they like to hang out in a group class with me? Maybe they don't. Maybe they want a one-on-one class. Maybe they want a mix. But that's part of your repertoire, and that's going to be, just as it is in a physical school, you're dealing with a bunch of different elements and you're pulling them all together in this wonderful combination. Online, it's no different. And actually, what I'm excited about is previously we've had lots of large businesses all sort of following a similar kind of, hey, this is how you scale, this is how you win online. But if you're starting out, you're not going to be focusing on pure scale. First of all, the main competitors are well ahead of you in terms of scale. However, you can still win, but you need to play to your strengths. And that's going to be creating a unique, differentiated sort of, you know, interesting combination that's of high value to your market segment. And so that's kind of,
for a lot of the schools that we're looking at, like a lot of the schools we're talking to, a lot of the schools that we're looking at are schools who have got a kind of route to sales for really successful, really cash-rich clients who are willing to pay top dollar for a top dollar experience, but it has to be a top dollar experience, you know. Returning, if I can, to the Chelsea Bun, you know, if we're saying to people, look, what you need now is this bun. And they're going, actually, I don't need a bun now.
I
don't
don't
really
like
want
Chelsea
a bun.
buns.
I don't like buns. Yeah. And, we're going, yeah, but have the bun, and we're going, look, it's got sugar. It's got sugar on it, sugar. And they go, no, I don't, and also, like, if we are saying to people, well, I know that normally we bake lovely food and it's all handmade and it's all homemade, but we can't do that now. So we're just going to give you a very cold Burger King, right? But it's like, it's not actually Burger King. It's just a bit like that, but it's cold. And we can't really, it's not.
But it's got everything that a burger does. It's got everything you would want in a burger. It's just cold.
It's
Are you
just
okay
cold,
with that?
And yeah, it's sort of, here's a Burger King, but you've bought the Savoy and you're expecting the Savoy, and we're offering you Burger King, and it's cold, and you're like, I mean, I use Burger King as an example because I was actually fired from Burger King when I was about 15, 16, and it still hurts. It was actually very difficult to get fired from Burger King. Like, I really had to try. So,
well done on you, Thom. And I'm so glad that you got fired, because now we have your wit and humor and experience with us today. So one of the things that I think we also need to think about is orchestrating an experience as well. So it's not just about giving. Like, giving is just like, here it is, here's the burger. But orchestrating is like, I need these things to be right for that person to walk away with a really great experience. And in this slide, I'm really trying to articulate that you need to have a vision of where you're going. You need to know who you're talking to. And then you need to design an experience that's going to deliver. And that's not just one class, but obviously, what does that sequence of classes look like? And how do I generate a wonderful experience? And that might be before they even get to that course. Now, I'm also talking here for when things open up as well. You'll almost certainly be wanting to think about like a pre-course experience where it might be assessment, it might be getting students ready for coming to your physical school, and then afterwards as well. Once the student, their visas run out, they need to get home. Doesn't mean they have to stop being a customer. You don't have to wave goodbye. You can actually wave, hey, see you soon. I'll see you online.
That's so true.
And so that's just an idea of like how you might position in a physical setting. But again, if we go back to the experience, you still want to design that at the end of that physical experience, they're like, hey, I've had such a great experience. Of course, I want to continue learning with you because I really like the way you teach. I like the content that you use. I like the way that you bring everything together. And I trust you. So that's kind of, all those things have to be right before somebody's going to join your online course.
That's absolutely spot on. I mean, it's really important, and it's so true that's not happening effectively, and it's not often able to, we're not able to bring that. The conversations that I'm having with schools I find really interesting, because so many people are saying to me, oh, the problem with the online stuff is we cannot do this and we cannot deliver this. You're going, no, but A, you often can, and B, you can do so much more as well, and I think that stuff about in a physical school, you often have students that arrive, and when they arrive, you go, oh, actually they've signed up for this, but they really need this, and they don't have the language capacity for this. So we have to, and you have to make a lot of changes very quickly. And that's often quite upsetting for a student who signs up for example, a university course, and then finds themselves suddenly having to do an extra year's foundation course. And I think, the being able to contact them, being able to have an online element and assess them, but also talk to them about their concerns, before they come. It's great because it means people are really ready and they're prepared, and they are, it's a head start, and why would you not want to give them that?
That's right. So I think we'll go to our next segment, which is on positioning and pricing. So this kind of, again, allows you to create an experience that's of value to your customers. So I think particularly at this stage, people are going to be really looking for individual experiences. I've been talking a lot about advertising, and even the way that advertising is working on. People don't want to see, hey, look, if you're like these other 100 million people, you're going to learn really, 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 really well with us. They want to hear, oh, if you're like this, and I really understand you as a person, that you hate Genesis, and and you've got this wonderful beard, and actually you don't have to worry about shaving your head. If I know that that's you, then I've got the perfect thing for you. And so I think this is where there's opportunity for creativity and opportunity for real growth, but people are wanting a personal experience, and anything that sort of resembles like a generic, like I could get it anywhere, I'm just not going to pay very much for it. And so that's where pricing is going to be a really important part, because if you want to offer something super generic, no problem, but then expect that you're going to need a lot of volume, because people are going to pay a very little amount of money for that. So that's just
and they can get it anywhere, and they can often get it better.
Yeah, that's right, because you do have a lot of people that have been playing in the space for a long time. I mean, Duolingo, again, like, how do you get to hundreds of millions of people? Build an app like Duolingo. Unfortunately, you need about 8 years, a number of different doctorates, and again, I've talked to them. They're phenomenally smart individuals, and really they've created a fantastic product for what they want it to do. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't compete with them. It's just you need to think very differently to them and offer students something that they otherwise can't get. So that's kind of where it comes down to. Now, that's just us kind of rambling on about student experience. I hope you've been able to pull out some wins. Thom, any lasting thoughts that you have about the student experience?
Well, I suppose, again, if we can come back to the bun, my lasting theory on this is just the joy I've suddenly experienced on realizing that because we're doing this online, I now don't have to share my bun with you. So that's brilliant. But I mean, other than that, no, I mean, other than that, I think, it has to be an experience, doesn't it? It has to be a sort of Swiss Army knife of so many different things, and you have to be able to go back to, or go away from that experience and think, God, that was great, and I loved that, and this is brilliant, and these are fantastic, and it has to be all of that, right?
Yeah.
And it has to be the full menu, the full meal, because otherwise it's just a snack, and snacks are disposable, and snacks are forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, you want repeat business, and you not only want repeat business, but you want them to tell their friends and bring you other repeat business. So it's like, if I serve you really, really well, you're probably going to have friends that want the exact same experience, individualized for them, of course, but that's what they're going to pay money for. And that's how you're going to generate a great business, because then you don't have to keep on going acquiring and hunting customers. They start coming back to you because it's actually them doing the work. So actually, one of the things I'd be really encouraging you to do is, who of your students have you delivered such a fantastic experience that they are your advocates, they are your ambassadors? That's probably a really good start of where to spend your energy in terms of not only recreating that experience, but also finding more people like that already like what you're offering. They love that burger that you've got that's just right with all the different things that they want. They love those different ingredients. They love the way it was served. They love the way that you came to them, in your best pirate outfit, whatever it is that it was that made them have a
fancy dress
experience.
Online. Brilliant. Just saying.
Yeah. But all of that makes an experience. And I hope you've come up with some great ideas about what a great experience and a different experience and a new and novel and creative experience could look like for you. But also, don't freak out about it. There are lots of tools that are going to be able to help you do this. It is going to probably come in the form of some kind of professional virtual classroom. It is going to have some level of professionalism in terms of how you bring somebody into a class, into a program, into a course. I know that Thom's a really big believer, and I really back that up. I haven't seen it nearly enough online, but creating some more personal touches with either the teachers themselves or the support staff that give a much more thorough sense of, I'm being looked after and this is a great service for me. And of course, you're delivering results. You're actually taking somebody from one point to another, and you don't have the luxury of just 20 hours a week where people are going to be fully enthralled.
Definitely. I think my big takeaway is just saying that doing stuff online doesn't mean distance, that doing stuff online actually means you can build real engagement and real kind of closeness and proximity with your students, and build rapport, because you do have that leisure and that time and the tools to be able to just talk directly to students in a way that in a physical school is really hard. In a physical school, you're often, me as a principal, whatever, you're talking to hundreds of students at a time. And rarely one-on-one. And actually what you can do is really personalize that experience online.
That sounds bang on. So I hope you've enjoyed this experience. We've certainly enjoyed our conversations, as we always do. If you'd like to get in touch with either of us, myself, particularly from a technology, tools, trends, that kind of thing, I can provide a lot of extra info and resources for you. Thom and I are building some more videos that you can enjoy those too, maybe talking about strategy, business. And also, I mean, Thom, what an absolute fountain of knowledge, and he's got a lot of great experience. So you can see his email there. Definitely get in touch with Thom. He can help your business on more than what I can in a way. He can talk to you at a much better idea of how to get the best out of your school, out of your staff, out of your team, out of your vision. So stay tuned and we'll see you again soon.
See you now. Cheers.